on the call went to the tour on Saturday? I know Sally did. Joe, I think I saw your picture.
We need to all give Sally a big shout out for organizing this. She
Thank
did
you,
a great
Sally.
job. Hey.
Oh, well, thank you. I just was telling Melody, I just wanted to stay and move in with Dixie.
Wow.
Stay in that wonderful house and studio she had. I was reluctant. She was so gracious.
The weather was so perfect.
Yeah, you did have a good day. So was it just in her studio, or did y'all drive around, or what? How did it go?
Well, it's open to her house. Yeah, I mean, we didn't sort of sneak into the house, but you could get into the dining room. She had some work in there as well, but just, and then you could look in her luscious garden and
cool.
Well, and we need to do, she has, there's a list of her outdoor sculptures on her website. So, and there's a map. So it'd be kind of fun one day to, you know, to do like a treasure hunt and go find them all.
Because if it's a treasure hunt, we're going to pick up her art and take it away. If it's a scavenger hunt,
that would be good. But yeah,
it would, wouldn't it? I mean, she might not. But that would be fun.
Can I make a request?
Who was asking? Oh, hey.
Well, this is Patty. I don't know if you can hear me, but the Houston Bead Society was founded the same year that WiVLA was founded. And our meetings are on the third Saturday of the month. So I really wanted to go to the the event, but it was the third Saturday of the month, and I'm the president of the Bead Society, so I kind of had to be there.
I get that. Yeah. Well, we had open studios at my building on the third Saturday too. So I also was not able to attend and would have.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to throw that out there because it's like, I want to go, but
yeah, it's almost like the fourth Saturday is the golden time, right? The first.
Yeah. Well, you know, first, second, fourth, what? Anything. But
well, second doesn't work. Yeah, that's the trouble. You know, there's people have
second doesn't work. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
So we try to move it around to where, you know, everybody gets an opportunity to go to something.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But yes, I would have loved to have gone myself. I hear you.
Actually, 10:30 in the morning is, you know, we were finished by noontime, and we got the whole afternoon and evening free. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Melody, I want to point out that Ellen is here.
I see her.
Okay.
Oh, now we can begin. Okay. So, Lane, were you going to say something, or were you just waving?
I was just waving at Carolyn because we've been friends for 20 years.
Oh, that's who you're waving at. Okay, waving to.
It's hard to tell who I'm waving at. I know. Hi to everybody.
Hi, Lane.
Hi, Lane.
Okay.
Kathleen Davis.
Oh, hey, Kathy.
Xfinity in my location is not working, so I can't get on Zoom.
Oh.
Well,
so I'm here as much as I can by phone.
So the good news is I'll have the meeting, the recording of the meeting up on our YouTube channel within a day or two, by Friday for sure. Okay, and then I post a link to it in our Facebook group. So and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Haley usually I can't talk tonight. Usually posts a link to our YouTube channel in the newsletter. And I think there's also a link to it. Is there in our website? I should know this. Anyway, there's a way for you to get to the meeting, the recording of the meeting. So, not to fear. Okay. Yes.
Can I add one more thing about the Dixie Friend Gay studio tour on Saturday? I thought I was remembering this, and I saw this book that we've had the speakers
Oh,
for
she must.
Right.
in her studio, and she is in there, number 10.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh,
Isn't that what? Oh, I've seen. Oh, wonderful.
Thank you for
like it.
mentioning that.
Are featured
Oh.
in this book. So if we end up doing a tour, you know, we can for sure do hers or just do a Dixie one.
Yeah.
But if you've got your copy of this, she's number 10 in there. So
That's good.
I remember seeing those birds. I was just trying to look it up. So yeah, she was impressive all around.
Yeah, we need to contact those women again, because they were all about doing a tour for us, and that would be a good thing to do. Okay, so looks like we have quite a few
Oh, good.
people on the call.
Mhm.
Why don't we go ahead and get started with our mission statement? And so, Ellen,
Yes.
would you like to recite our mission statement?
It would be my honor. WiVLA's mission is to provide an inspiring forum for women to explore and advance their creative development, to promote their work in the marketplace, and to infuse the community with their spirit of cooperation and invention.
Thank you. It's always good to be reminded of our mission statement. We constantly strive to provide more opportunities to further that statement. Sabina, are there some new members on the call?
I don't know if they're on the call. We did have 3 new members since the last meeting. One was Tracy Meyer, Helene Robinson, and no.
Another Tracy. There's 2 Tracys.
Are there 2 Tracys?
Yes,
Did I
there's
write
2.
it down wrong?
Yeah, new member Tracy Naylor. So we had 2
Tracy
Tracys
Naylor.
on Saturday. Yeah.
And I don't necessarily see them on the call, but I may be missing something. So it's a great vast sea of squares. It's hard to see. So if you are a new member and you would like to, wave your hands and say hello, that would be very lovely. No, okay, never mind. If I may, Melody, one other thing I want to mention. I don't know if this applies to anybody on the call, but please do remember that WiVLA membership, our membership period changed. So we are now on an anniversary date basis. So anybody that renewed in October of last year, you may need to renew your membership at this time. You should have gotten an email, so hopefully you got an email reminding you, but again, it's kind of a new system, so hopefully there aren't too many bugs to work out, but there always are a few. So if you have a question, you can either contact me or I will be contacting directly those people that either have been affected or will be affected in the next few weeks or so, just as a reminder, since it is a new system and we switched over, just so nobody loses out on the membership benefits.
Right, thank you. Yeah, it used to be January 1st, everybody had to renew. And so, yes, it is a new system. Thanks. Marie, I saw her. There you are. Hi, Marie. Any updates on the virtual gallery?
On the virtual gallery, we have 2 visual artists.
Oh, good.
We need 1 literary, and so I am reaching out. If anybody's interested, we can still make it work. Otherwise, what I'll do is I'll just publish with the 2 visual artists.
Okay. It's a great opportunity, and especially the writers who have a haiku or short flash fiction like Ellen did, that we save it as an image and so that you can read it easily in the gallery.
So I'm gonna put my email on the chat if anybody wants to reach out to me directly and discuss anything, we can still make it work. I'm working on it.
When I submitted some flash fiction, it was 200 to 250 words. So very quick and easy.
Yeah, that's a good guideline. It fit nicely. It fit nicely there.
Yeah, and I play with the size on the wall so that it's not going to show up as an 8.5 by 11. I play with it and so that it's easy to read as you're strolling through the gallery.
Yeah, I encourage you to check it out now. There's a couple. This is a different kind of exhibition. This period, we usually have 1 literary and 2 visual artists, and we have 2 and 2 this time. So check out the different options for presenting the both kinds of art.
Yeah, and how they're displayed, and also taking visual artists for January, February. If anybody's interested, go ahead and do your intent to exhibit on the website, and we'll take it from there. I'll give you all the info that you need.
Perfect. Okay, and one last reminder, our Awakening exhibition is up on the website through the end of this month. So take advantage of any opportunities to share it through your social media. If you have questions about how to do that, reach out to Marie or me, or probably anyone on the board can show you how to do that. We have made a couple of recordings of the reception, so it's available on YouTube forever. Okay, as long as YouTube's around. Okay, thanks. Ellen again.
Yes, ma'am.
So we've got a couple of literary opportunities coming up.
We have 2 exciting literary opportunities that are coming up, just one right after the other, and feel free to sign up for both. Our literary reading, our annual literary reading in November is coming up. It'll be on November 16th. And if you go to the newsletter, you can click on the link to sign up for that. The theme is mask, which is, masks like Halloween, like COVID, like tribal, like whatever you think of as masks. Write us an essay. It has to last about or not longer than 5 minutes. And please sign up for that and have some fun with it. Also, there is an extra literary chance this year to read and share fun stories, and that is Spooky Christmas. WiVLA is joining up with the Houston Writers Guild and Brazos Bookstore. Brazos Bookstore has done this before in their store, but this one will be, of course, virtual and online. But Spooky Christmas. Think of stories like Christmas Carol and The Nightmare Before Christmas and having your relatives over for a Christmas dinner. How spooky can that get? So we're looking for funny, scary, a little off center, a little macabre for the spooky Christmas. And for that, you should have received an email. And if you have any questions, I will put up my phone number and email in the chat. So that's 2 opportunities, and please feel free to sign up for both. One is our literary theme month, and that's November, and that is mask. And then in December, on December 7th, it'll be a virtual reading with both us, Houston Writers Guild, Brazos Bookstore, and the theme is Spooky Christmas. Have fun, have fun.
And feel free to wear a mask to the November meeting.
Masks and tiaras are always welcome at any time.
Yes. And there will be some information in the November newsletter, which is in a couple of weeks, which will talk about a workshop that will be available to you in January. It will be led by our own Gladys May Bullock, and it will be an awesome way to kickstart 2022 and hopefully 2022 will be different than 2020 and 2021. And if Gladys May has anything to do with it, it will be. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for more information about that. One last announcement before we get to the meeting. We have decided on a theme for next year's collaboration. And the theme is, ooh, drum roll. The theme is reflection. And reflection. What did you think I said?
Resection.
Oh.
Yeah, no, reflection, you know. So every time I think of the theme, I think of this Supreme song, you know, anyway, or maybe it was Diana Ross. Anyway.
No, that
we
was
wanted
RESPECT.
No, reflections of the way life used to be.
Yes, that's true. That's Diana Ross.
Diana Ross. Okay.
Reflections of
That's
life it used to be.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry I planted the earworm. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
So
Yeah, that's it.
anyway, the reason why we're telling you now before we have the venue is it takes a while to find partners and get together and start working on a project. So we wanted to give you as much advance notice while we're working on a physical venue, okay? It won't be, unless horrible things happen, and horrible things won't happen in 2022 because we're starting the year off with Gladys May. We will have a in-person collaboration, okay?
Yeah.
Brave woman.
Oh, please.
Does
Anyway,
that normally take place?
pardon, where?
What
Or
month
when?
does that normally take place?
I don't know if it's been a normal. Let's see, it's been, I guess, the last couple of them. Now, I've only been around for 2. So this will be my 3rd one, and they've been in the last quarter. I can't say, but last year it was supposed to be, I mean, yeah, in 2020, it was supposed to be in June, and the pandemic stopped everything. And because as you recall, I was talking to you a lot about it before you were a member, and we were able to then move it to a virtual exhibition with the Holocaust Museum, I believe in October, if I'm remembering.
Yes.
It's jumped around, but the idea is to give everybody plenty of time to get a partner and do your collaboration. And you know, this is going to be great. I'm so happy to hear the theme. Thank you.
So, and if, for those of you that are newer members and aren't familiar with what a collaboration is, a virtual and a literary artist team up together to create a project. I mean, it's half virtual, it's half literary, and it's amazing what 2 people can come up with this broad theme. With space, we had things that were kind of like outer space and inner space and space between things, and you know, so and I think like Paula, I think you've even seen our book of what the compassion was. And so, and if not, we have copies in my studio. You can come by and take a look.
Yeah,
we have some too.
Yeah, and also I believe we should have a link to it someplace.
I think I think the link is still up.
Yeah, because we have a recording of it. Anyway, so those are all the announcements. For now, we will have member news at the end of our meeting. So with no further ado, I am going to turn the meeting over to Sally.
Okay, well, Carolyn, it's been a long time coming, right? And I met Carolyn, I think somebody suggested go see Carolyn at the Archway Gallery. I think this must have been 3 years ago when you were speaking, Carolyn, at Archway about your art preserves what can't be saved, right? With with John Slaby, who coincidentally enough has got an exhibition on Archway right now. So this is good timing. And I have the book here that I bought. Now you see I've got this virtual background, so you can't see the book.
Oh, can't see it. No,
This is the disadvantage of you know, these virtual
there it
backgrounds. Yeah.
there it
And
is.
it's a beautiful little book of wonderful poems with John Slaby's painting on the cover. And cover is what the subject of Carolyn's talk tonight.
Wonderful.
And she's a woman of many talents. I thought she was going to talk about her wonderful quilts as well, but she says she's moved on from those now and concentrating on writing. But I'm so pleased that we finally made it. In spite of, you know what, the virus that I dare not speak its name anymore.
Please don't.
I'm sick of that word.
Yeah, let it die.
Yeah.
If you want to ask questions, we've decided that please ask them on the chat and we'll go through them later. That's probably the best way to do it tonight. So Carolyn, welcome. A big welcome to you, and over to you.
One brief moment, Carolyn. If everyone would mute yourself so that she can speak uninterrupted. Thanks.
Well, first of all, I want to thank WiVLA for inviting me to be the speaker tonight, because it's kind of like coming home, and I see a lot of faces that I knew back when I was a member too. So it's really very nice to see all of you again. And I thank especially Sally, who just kept it up through the pandemics, and we kept going back and forth thinking that eventually this has to be over and we can have an in-person meeting, but it didn't really happen. So here we are doing a Zoom, which is nice too, because everybody can attend. Tonight, I want to talk about covers, because WiVLA is a very creative organization. I mean, I know a lot about it for a long period of time. And I know that there are many of you in there who are online promoting your work, but also there's a desire by many people who have talked to me, because I've published books, like, how do you do a book of, you know, an artworks, or your handmade books, or your literary books, or whatever. And we can find a lot of information out there about how to write a book. That's not difficult to find. But what we often don't find is how books are produced, you know, once they're with the publisher and that, because that's kind of like secret information in a way, because of the fact that it's taken out of your hands. You've done your part, and now the publisher is going to make a book for you with their own crew, and then it comes back to you later to publicize and do the marketing. But the thing that I wanted to give you a little bit tonight, I guess I would call them, maybe insights or ways of thinking about covers that I have discovered by talking with the editors or the designers or publishers for the books that I have published, and what I have kind of learned from them. So I suppose you might say they're like the, you know, 5 top tips or something like that, because we don't have time. I mean, it's like a workshop in itself to do covers totally. But I wanted to give you the things that probably meant the most to me, and I hope they will too. So the first thing I want to say, that if you are thinking about writing a book, if you're in the middle of one, or if you're producing any kind of book, think about right away looking for a cover. Put it in your mind that every time you go to a gallery, you look at a website, you look at a book catalog, or you're in a bookstore, ask your mind, would this make a good cover? And start thinking about what you like. And there are two reasons for that. One is because one thing I discovered was when I started to note the kind of book covers I liked, I also began to understand a little bit more about my manuscript, maybe what kind of tonal quality it had, because I was going for those kind of books. Also, because covers are the first things that are produced if you're with a publisher, or even if you're doing it as self-publishing, because that is put out, a mock-up of your book very early into the world to be publicized, to take orders for salespeople to use it. So it's something that you want to be ready for, because whether you work with a publisher or you do it yourself, that's going to be one of the things you're going to get out first. So I always say, look at these things, photograph them, print them out, save the website name or the artist name, and put them in a file so that they're ready if you're thinking about doing a book or something, you know, that you're even just gelling. And if not, it might even be very interesting later for other purposes if you keep this file. The other thing that I think I learned so much about this was I had kind of an idyllic idea that, oh, the publisher and I would work together and we would become these big friends and it was going to be really fun. We would work on the cover and all of it together. Well, what happens is that's really not true. If you are lucky enough to get a publisher, they will work with you on the text and your editor and that, but they are in control. And your clause in your contract sets very clearly that they are the ones who will decide what kind of book cover you get. You are not involved. And that took me as somewhat of a shock. It was only later on that after I had published 2 books, I published 6, so it was at least 2 of them, that I was brave enough to put a clause in the contract. Now, I did not demand anything in the contract, because that doesn't work at all with a publisher. And you don't want to lose your contract because you worked hard to get that. But what you say is something like, very diplomatically, you'll say something like, well, the author would like to be informed, or the author would like to look at it or kind of know before it's put out. You put it in a very diplomatic way. But what you're trying to do is insert yourself into the process, you know, because you can't just go in easily to a designer, because all these publishers have their own designers. And these people are artists, just like we are. And they get rather touchy if you start going in there, well, I really think you should do, you know, this or that. Nuh-uh. That doesn't go over very well. So you have to have it in the contract. But I will tell you that there are a couple of ways that I kind of think that you can be a little sneaky about it. And one is that whenever you have the opportunity to talk to your editor, to your cover designer, your publisher, tell them about yourself, tell them stories. What's in your work? Is there an artwork in there that has an interesting story, or something that you can add that builds the story for publicity, but also it makes their mind know who you are and maybe understand your book better. Like this is one here that was put out by Watson Guptill. And in this, on the cover, you can see that there are ginkgo leaf prints. And the book is about using nature, making prints from nature and incorporating it into your artwork. And it's basically a how-to book with a lot of different things in it, but it really has a lot of essays in it. So every chapter starts with an essay, and they had a beautiful designer, and then it'll go on into something else. But here, once again, they were very interested in the fact that these ginkgo leaves, I did not have a tree to print. So on the cover and inside, these are all ginkgo leaves that my students sent me, and they liked that idea very much. Now, the other thing that happened was talking with my editors, I said, well, I do poetry too, you know. So she said, those of you who do design, you will understand this. You notice that there's the title. It's called Catching Nature's Colors in Your Memory. And so then there's a little dingbat, they call it, those little squiggly whatever things they use, leaf or whatever. And then there was this gap. And then there was a caption. So one day she called me and she said, do you suppose you have excerpts from poems that you could just send me? And instead of putting a dingback there, why don't we put a little selection from the poem? So see, she was knowing me better. And so they put in each one of these chapters a little bit of poetry. And I'm just going to read you this one because this essay is about color for the artist. My grandmother's garden was her farm, acres of tall tasseled corn, bee-covered clover, and potato plants growing white underground fruit in the rich black soil. But her heart lived in a patch of poppies, unfolding their crinkled red petals, thin and brilliant as tissue paper someone set on fire. And it was a beautiful coordination with all this red into the red of the poppies. So sometimes you can kind of sneak in. Don't miss the opportunity to really let them know who you are, because it'll help them design the cover much better. Now, with small companies, like say you're doing a poetry or something, they have very small staffs. They're not like these big art book publishers, and they are actually rather happy when you send them a picture that says, this is kind of like what I was thinking, or it's similar to this, because you help them along, because they don't have time to get these books out. So you have a little more chance with a small publisher like a poetry book or a chapbook, something like that. Now, if you're self-publishing or you're doing handmade books, you have absolutely every option in the world. It's just wonderful, the kind of choices. And that's one of the things I like about self-publishing. Actually, you have total control. But the thing that I would recommend is that you do talk to a book producer who will help you through the process, because it's rather complex, or that you have a cover designer, because you want, if you're doing a self-published book, you do not want the cover to look self-published. And you can pick these out. You see them all the time, because it's not really a very sophisticated kind of cover. So now, when I started to do a lot of looking around and working with these editors, I discovered that there were basically two kinds of covers that they were doing. And one I call the one about letters. It's all graphic and letters. In other words, they're going to take your title, your name, and they're going to do something wild and wonderful with it, but it's just going to be basically the letters. And so they take precedent. And if there's an image, it's like this blurred little thing, like that person who blurred her background of her studio. It's kind of that same idea. It's just kind of blurred in the background, but it's not dominant. It's meant to be the words. And you'll see this in a lot of poetry books now. The other way is that there's an image on the book. And that's probably what you and I like best. You know, we're looking for artwork. We're looking for a photo. We're looking for a drawing, something that really has an image on it. And this image means that the image is really the focal point, and then your name and the title and that are secondary. So the language is kind of secondary. And I like to recommend also in this case that if you do this type, that you go local, that you kind of look at who's around you, that say you're a writer that does artwork, kind of do that. Because I think, and especially that's one of the things that I love so much about the fact that WiVLA, you have ready-made group to pick art from. And there are there are some benefits to that. One is that you have someone to kind of work with that makes it a lot of fun. You have someone that will do an event with you, just like she mentioned the event that John Slaby and I did at Archway. So you can kind of coordinate it. You are helping to promote them, their art, because every book you sell goes out with their artwork, and they're helping to promote you. And sometimes with more local artists, they're very generous and kind that they will trade the ability to have their work out there on the cover for an amount of free books, or they might charge a very nominal fee. Because if you're going for the really kind of big designers that are out there that are on the internet, you're going to pay. There's going to be, you know, a fair amount of money to even use it. And then sometimes they even do restrictions on how long it can use it. So that's not good. Now, I also discovered, I thought, okay, there's an image, and I didn't kind of catch on to this right away. I just thought image, you know, generic. But then I started noticing something else, that the designers were using two different types. One is what I'll call the illustrative, the illustration type that really helps to explain the book or the title. And the other one's the associative. Now this one, which actually was one of the few books of mine that I was able to choose the image. And I sent it to my publisher and he loved it and felt it was perfect. So he went with it. Whereas the others, you usually have to convince them. So Our Preserves What Can't Be Saved is an image that I chose and I found. So I'm extra proud of this one. But it is an illustration type of cover, in the sense that I find my title a little difficult, Our Preserves What Can't Be Saved. And yet here is John's painting that almost exemplifies that, explains the title. Here's this jar where there would have been a flower in it, there would have been a living life. Above here is the painting, and the painting is what's left over. But it shows us that through art, we can save the memory of something that was living. So there's a whole narrative right in that work. Now, the other type is what I call associative. And this is a co-authored book with Carolyn Florick. And we did this, there's poetry and there's art in it. The middle section has artworks also. But we asked for this kind of cover, but we weren't sure we would necessarily get it. But it does refer to the title because painted door, okay, painted. And you kind of associate these little black shapes as doors opening to the poems that are inside. Yet it's not literal like this. It's not explaining it. It's just kind of referring to it. And it's kind of the same idea, but I'm not going to the illustration. It's associative is what they call it. The cover absolutely must have a similar tonal quality or some kind of intangible thing that connects it with the poems inside, the writing inside, the artwork inside, the style of the artwork inside. It would be very jarring if you had this wild, crazy, letter kind of cover, and then you go inside and it's nature poems. That just would not work. So you want them to kind of be very similar in that sense, in the tonal quality. So this was an art book. It's my second edition of Transforming Fabric. And you can tell it has a rather sensuous kind of cover to it. Well, the reason is because the designer of this particular book, the interior is very lush. You can see the borders, you can see all the colors, you can see there's metallic, you can see there's a lot of details that are very, very lush. So this goes throughout the whole book, even though there's stories and there's also, a lot of how-tos and things, but this is the way she's designed the book. So you have to have a cover that reflects that same thing. And I'm going to tell you a little story about this book later, because this is the second cover, but you have to have it kind of connect with what was there before. A little thing that I do, and this would work a lot for the artists in the group, or you could get one of your friends who are artists to do the same thing. And I take an image and I say to myself, if I were the designer, how would I do this cover? I look at the colors, I look at the textures, I look at how I would do it. So let's go back to our preserves again. Okay, I looked at this lime green vase. Now I know from painting that lime green is delicious with a deep purple. So I knew immediately I could have this painting and do a rich border for where my title would go across in this color. But also as an artist, I knew that if there are pink flowers in there, that my purple should not run toward the blue, but should have more the red in the purple. So I'm thinking like a designer, and I'm saying this is worthwhile because what happens is if you start doing that, or you have a friend do it, what you discover very quickly are images that just aren't going to make it. They're just not going to be interesting, or the colors that you would pull from that image don't work for the border. They don't work for, the words. Like you'll notice in here, the words, I pulled the yellow out that kind of comes out of the vase for that. So there's a different kind of thing that they have to kind of coordinate in some way. So I like to do that as an artist. The thing that Watson Guptill, and those of you who are artists taught me, or that Watson Guptill taught me, and those of you who are artists recognize that name. They're the biggest art publisher almost in New York City, and they're very, very professional. I mean, their book was almost like, I don't think there's a flaw in it anywhere, and usually every book has a little typo or something. But the designer there told me, she said, you must always think of your book as a billboard. In other words, that book has to stop and attract attention. It has to give you information. What's this book about? Fabric, art, poems, whatever. And it has to make you want the book, just like a billboard does. You have to create a desire for it. Now, this is not their book, but it's the one that I think is the most like a billboard, because it's very bold. You can see the design up close. You can see the words very easily. You can see all the different designs in it that actually wrap around. So you want to think in terms of, is your book beautiful on the backside and the front? Because poets, when you're doing a reading, or artists, how is your book? It's like this. Your audience is looking at your cover and they're looking at the back too. So it's very nice in this book because it has what's called a wraparound cover. So the image continues and it has the texture. Now, here's another tip they gave me. Any image you're thinking of, put it across the room and look at it. Why? Because sometimes the most simple design starts to morph into something else in somebody else's imagination. And one good example is there was a very abstract design to a book and beautiful sort of brush strokes that looked just gorgeous on this abstract background. But far away, what did it look like? It looked like worms on a background. So you don't necessarily see that until you hold it far away. And remember, most books in bookstores are going to be far away. So you want your book to be good far away. You can read the title easily, and beautiful up close so that they will see the dragonfly there. Whereas, further away, it's just a beautiful design, but it's beautiful both ways. And that was another thing that my publishers told me. Pretty books still sell. Still sell very good, as opposed, as opposed to others. And I'm happy about that too, because I like pretty books, but apparently they still attract. The other thing I want to point out in this one is look at your spine. Spine is very, very important in a book, and you have to be able to read it. So what have they done here, this designer, in order to make this very readable on the shelf? Because you're not always going to see a book like this. You're going to see it like this lots of times. They put it in caps, and they put white on black, on black things. And yet it coordinates so beautifully with the dark of the painting coming in. But yet they're very aware that a book's title that can't be read probably will not be picked up. So they're very smart that way, I think. Your book cover must also match the mode of marketing for you. And now we have so many ways of marketing, but before we used to not be able to have real subtle kinds of covers. But the problem with that is that people may be looking at it and able to look at it very closely as to what the image is online, but they're also able to scroll right by it. So you have to do something that stops them in the scrolling, that intrigues them or catches them or something like that, that really attracts them. And I taught for years in art conferences around the country. And with those conferences, they have vendors that come into these huge convention centers. And a lot of the books are in racks or they're in shelves and they're all clustered together. And I thought this was kind of fun. This was what one vendor told me. She said, you know what? I like a book that's got an image. Okay, she said, because if I'm working really hard and I'm trying to help a customer and it gets very, very busy, and someone comes up to me and says, oh, I want that book, Art Preserves by Carolyn Dahl, and she says, where do you have it? She said, it's really difficult to be able to describe. I can't leave my customer and go. So she'll say, oh, just look for the one with the green vase. So sometimes it's very useful to have an image that is very definite, or look for the one with the dragonfly up there or something. To have an image like that, vendors like that. I never thought of that. And also I want to just quickly mention weird sizes. Watson Guptill did this book in the square size. It's absolutely beautiful. They did it because they had a series of watercolor books in this size and they wanted to tune into the same market. And so it was really beautiful. And because it has so many essays and poetry and all that, it's a very kind of special kind of book, and it worked for them. However, when I took this to the conferences where I was teaching and they got put in the racks, it fell out of the racks. It doesn't fit the racks. The racks are made for a certain size book, and that was it for art books. So these kind of small books or little books like this that are unusual size, they often get lost on the shelf. So it's something to think about if you're going to be marketing with a publisher or marketing in a big way, book fairs, things like that, where you might be using racks. If you're hand selling it, it's not a big problem. You can hand sell a handmade book anyway, because it's kind of person to person, and you don't have masses of people pouring through. And the last thing that I kind of want to talk about for tips is that a very important thing if you're doing special books, and this often comes with like chapbooks for poetry, handmade books or whatever, is that your cover must fit the technology that it's going to be printed in. So this is my last book in 2020, came out during the pandemic, which I never thought we would ever get it made. My printers had COVID and the school was shut down. It's published by North Dakota State University, and it won an award, their chapbook award. And part of the award was that it would be put out, published as a numbered, signed collector's edition, done on the old letterpress prints.
Oh, wow.
And what's really cool about that is that this book, when you buy it, it comes in a plastic bag. And I love just opening the bag going, because it's real ink. smells just like real ink, and the poems just, are done in that touch of a little bit of irregularity that comes from someone hand printing every page of your book. And they even put some kind of very special staples. I don't understand it. Some old thing from centuries ago that is some kind of wire that you use, and then you snip it off for each one. But it's just wonderful. I love it as an object as much as the fact that my poems are published in it. But the point I want to make is that this is on a letterpress print. They designed this one. I didn't have anything to do with the frog, although I absolutely love him, and a lot of people do from what I've heard. But you had to have something that a letterpress plate could print in ink that wouldn't fill in, that would be kind of linear, because it's almost like an etching, that would have the title, that it's fairly minimal because it's black and white, and it's digital that gives you all these wild colors. You can do anything on digital, because it's photographed, but on this, it's totally different. These are done by humans, and so it's kind of like a different sort of book that you have to think about if you're going to be putting out something really special. And once again, it's really important, especially in a poetry book, perhaps, that the cover matches the contents, not exact. There are frogs, frog poems in there that have frogs in it, but it's not that it's matching it exactly. It's matching the locality, or it's matching the kind of quality or tonal effect. I say tonal a lot, but it's really important that the book has. And I want to read you the last poem in the book, because I think that tells you more than anything why perhaps North Dakota State University chose the frog. It's called The Lost Field. Dig into the land, go below your life. Put a hand through the dust of a rabbit with a bullet for a heart. A finger into the tunnels of earthworms moving the planet through their bellies. Wake the sleeping cicadas dreaming of buzzing in their underground rooms. Touch the brown ash of last year's wheat, or maybe stars. Falling stars must land somewhere. Why not the open face of your field? Lick your dusty lips. Is this the taste of stars? Fill a glass jar with a silver spoon. Watch it sparkle. Dark glitter of outer space. Carry the jar with you always. No one owns a field of stars forever. So you can see that the quality or the poem's concept, the feel in it, is rural, Midwestern. It's a country poem. It's about nature. And so I think their choice of what they used here is probably exactly perfect. So I was happy with it in the end. One last thing I need to say is that I've given you a bunch of different kinds of tips and thoughts and ways to think about covers that I have looked at and been involved in. But there was one thing that I would say that was important for absolutely every cover that I was ever involved in. And I think this is the criteria that probably you have to have in the end. And that is that you absolutely love your cover. It has to be so beautiful that you want to set it in every room in your house and just walk around. You want to put it on an easel, or a friend of mine who says of his poetry book, I could put it on a plate and eat it. It's so pretty. And that's kind of what you should feel about your poetry book. And I'm going to try really, really quickly because I'm probably going too long here. But I wanted to tell you the story about this that ties into what I just told you, is that this was not the real cover at first. I was not involved in it. The designer designed it. And I saw online the first cover, and it was like a quilt of all different little squares. And in these squares was an example of the kind of techniques that are in the book. So it was sort of like a postage stamp from far away. I hated it. But I said to myself, Carolyn, you have a good publisher. The book will be beautiful. You need to decide if you want to pick a fight here. In the end, I did. I couldn't stand it. I went to the editor and I told her my concerns about it. I said, I don't think it'll sell well. It wasn't just, my own kind of attitude. And she said, it's too late. It's out in our catalogs. It's in our Barnes and Noble. It's on all the online sources that are going to sell your book. But I had one ace in the hole. The whole book was not published yet. So I did what I never, ever do. And I don't recommend you to do it unless you're just so passionate and desperate. I went to the acquisitions editor. I went above her, but I came armed. I came with information. I did not downplay the editor. And I came and I said, look, I've marketed one book. I'm teaching all over the country for many years. I know what my audience wants. I know what they're looking for. They don't want to taste techniques. They want to fall into the beauty of fabric that's been dyed. So I gave her those arguments and I came with an image, this image that I said, we need to do this one instead. She agreed with me. So that's how I got this cover. But let me tell you, you won't believe how hard it was to get all these back from online sources, Barnes and Noble. I think to this day, that first cover is probably out there somewhere because it was almost impossible to pull them back. So all that is to say is that sometimes you need to fight for your cover because you have invested, if you write a book, you've invested a lot of your life. You're investing your beautiful artwork. You spent so much time on your poems. They have to be in a vehicle, a vessel that is equally as beautiful. And my criteria always is that I want my book to be as beautiful and as loved that when I sign it and I hand it to someone, that I feel that I'm giving them like a little jewel. And that's the way I think a cover should be. So that's my spiel. And before we go to the Q&A, I want to tell you also that I'm offering a 10% discount to anyone who would like any of these books. All you need to do is to email me at Dahl Studio, my name and studio at AOL.com, and no one uses AOL, so you will never forget that my address is AOL. Or if you do forget, you can go to my website, carolyndahlstudio.com, and on there, you will be able to look at these books. I have the books posted, and you can look into them. If it went too quickly or you didn't see it well tonight, you can spend a little more time with them because they're all online, and there's the contents, and you can open them. So go there if you should forget. So thank you very much for listening, and I'm hoping to see books from you guys.
Oh, Carolyn, that was just wonderful. I know which book I'm going to order from you, and it's the Luscious. They're so luscious, and I love the way that they are so different. The frog one is beautiful in its simplicity, and yet the other ones are so luscious is the word, and the fact that they're suiting, they're so suited to what's inside. I think that's great.
Exactly.
It reminds me, I always used to choose a wine by the label, but now they're getting always so preposterous now, aren't they?
They are terrible names.
Yeah, those early
poetry. You want poetry in the label.
Yeah, the early ones were really nice, and I swear the wine tasted good too. But now,
Yeah.
There are some wines I just will not buy if they have if they have convicts on the label or people in chains or something. Yeah.
And that's why the cover. There are books that I look at and I really look like I like the book, but I cannot stand the cover and I walk away. And that's what the editors are saying, is that the cover must lure you in. It must be your billboard that makes you want that book.
Yeah.
It's addictive.
Well, I saw a question. I think Kay got in first with her question.
Okay.
Kay, would you like to repeat what you wrote? Where is Kay?
Here I am.
Okay.
I said, would you speak a little more about collaborating on a book with the writer Carolyn Florek, or with anyone else you've collaborated with?
Yes, I'd love to. I think it's a wonderful experience. And what I have always said about collaborations, because I did some, WiVLA's been doing collaborations for a long time. And when I was a member, I did some there. And I think one of the things is there is the product that is produced by your collaboration, but probably equally as wonderful is the fact that it leaves you with so many ideas lying on the table that you as individuals can then pick up and work at. It is one of the best brainstorming methods I think I've ever encountered. But for this book, it was really fun because it is arranged so interesting. We put the poems together and we began to realize, you know what? We have poems on the same topics. Like the book starts with my poem called Caudatorio, which is about a cardinal, and then it goes to Carolyn's cardinal mother. And we found that throughout the whole section, we had that kind of organization, be my poem, her poem. So a reader could get like kind of two viewpoints on the same thing. And then we wanted, because we're both artists, we wanted to put in artwork. So we also included those, and we called them like visual poems, in the sense that you had to supply your own narrative to these. You notice we don't have captions because we want you to decide what that artwork is about. And then the last part is our separate paths. And that's where we put in poems that we had, sorry, I've got sticky notes all over because I read from this one, but that's where we put in kind of the poems that were our special poems and went in directions that didn't work together. But I think it's one of the nicest experiences. I really think it generates so much. And I think I will forever be connected with Carolyn because we have these books together. I mean, they're almost gone now, but I mean, it's just that there was the experience of it together that is different from just friendship. You've made something together. It's different. Yeah. Thanks for that question. That's a good one.
What are you working on now?
I have a manuscript, the chapbook, this chapbook, the one with the frog, is a chapbook that was pulled from a long manuscript that I'm working on. So some of the poems that are in this chapbook will appear again if and when, knock on wood, I can find a publisher to publish the real long book, which, maybe 80 pages of poetry. And so it'll have some of the same poems, but it will carry on in this same idea. And what it is my mother had 12 children in her family. And I loved my aunts and uncles and just growing up with all that chaos and craziness and all that. So I have taken each one of these and kind of written pretty much imaginary poems there. I'm sure someone won't like what I attributed to them, but I've kind of imagined into their lives and situations that I wanted to portray. And so the poems, the only thing that probably I'd say is true is that I use their names, because I think the names in the past were just so gorgeous, Theodore, Reinhard, Wilhelmina, I mean, I just want to say them. So, and of course they all had, separate names with it too. They all had, middle names or something. Annabelle Gloria. Wouldn't you like to be named Annabelle Gloria? I mean, that's like a song in itself. So I have retained some of those. Lloyda Laverne. It's just so much fun. But anyhow, that's the project that I'm working on now that I'm trying very hard to finish because it's been going on a long time.
And you have a publisher in mind. Do you know the one who would be most likely to take it? No?
No, I would like it if it would be this one because it's a Midwest publisher and most of the poems are based in Minnesota because that's where I grew up. I would love it if it were them because they focus on retaining regional stories and the heritage. They focus on that. But it might be difficult because in the poetry world, they kind of rarely does your publisher publish your chapbook and your full book because the duplication. So I suspect it's going to be going in the mail and a lot of crying and screaming, and maybe I'll end up just giving up and self-publishing it and just to get it done and out there.
So which ones have you self-published and how was that process?
I haven't self-published.
You haven't done that?
No,
Okay.
all of them have, I've made little books on my own that are just my own little books, but they're not published anything. Yeah, just handmade books.
I wonder if anybody here tonight is self-published and can talk about her. Joe? What are you showing us, Joe?
My self-published book.
Oh, okay.
There are wonderful sources out there.
Okay, wait, no, all right. Now, can you tell us about it?
It's the Clay Transformation Project. I created a series of sculptures which were exhibited at Archway Gallery back in the early 80s. And about 3/4 of the pieces were sold. It was a very successful exhibition. But 7 or 8 pieces left over, what do? You can't show them again. Nobody wants to see old work. So they stayed in my storage for many years until one day I decided these pieces need to go back to their inspiration. And the inspiration for the pieces that's called Shifting Sands. I don't know if you can see the sculpture there. The inspiration was from West Texas. The hoodoos and the volcanic ash tufts gave me the color suggestion. So one by one, I started taking these leftover pieces out to West Texas and installing them into the environment and then walking away.
Wonderful.
So cool.
You're so good at that.
So that started in 1990. I did not return to the first site until 2004. And I discovered that where I had placed it up into a little niche, the entire quartz overhang had fallen down. So I don't know if it's still there or not. But anyway, altogether, I placed 7 sculptures out in this West Texas area. So I called it the Clay Transformation Project. It's a personal artistic journey.
So how was the process of self-publishing then?
Like Carolyn, I argued with them. I self-published, but I went with a company that gave me a lot of guidance. I submitted my manuscript and they made suggestions as to graphically how to arrange it. I wanted square, like you had, Carolyn, but they ended up wanting to do this rectangular format because they said, as far as the photographs I had submitted, that they worked better with this format, with the text. And the cover, I actually submitted a different image. Well, they had several images to choose from, but they selected this image. And I'm very happy with it.
It's a good one.
Because you see the piece of sculpture and then you see the hoodoos. You see the hoodoo formations in the background. It's perfect. Yeah, the
Got such
inspiration.
mystery to it, that photo. It's very mysterious. Yeah.
Yes, you wonder where in the
Yeah,
world is this
yeah.
something from outer space?
Yeah.
So
That's
it's not a big book. And even though I have, what is that called? The library thing?
ISBN.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be sold, but I will never sell it. I give them away. If I ever do a talk about my work, I give them away. I give them to friends. I give them to people who are interested. So.
And that thing about having work left over, because all artists have it, I think you are saying something that's really worthwhile. And because of the fact that, what do you do with these pieces after a show? You can't show them again. But one thing that's really nice about having a book is it documents all your work. And like with a lot of these transforming fabric books, it documents all that, because all my artwork is in there, all that I've done that now are gone, sold, destroyed, whatever. I would never have them again. So it's a perfect way to document your work and to have it and then move on or cut it apart, because I couldn't cut it apart till I had it documented the way it was. So I think that's a good point.
Okay.
People who have read my book, friends, acquaintances, the feedback I get is one of the things they enjoyed the most is I really immersed myself in understanding the geology of the area. And I use very proper scientific words, names of formations, and people found the reading of it extremely informative in that respect. And very, very interesting anecdotal things, like a woman who was out hiking and she discovered one of my pieces. And she said, I couldn't resist picking it up and turning it over. And she saw my name on the bottom of it. So she Googled my name and she found my website and she emailed me. And she said, I was just out of my head excited about finding this piece of sculpture. And she said, but I will never tell any, I put it back. I placed the rocks just like you had them around it. I will never tell anybody what I saw, where it is, anything. She promised me. And to this day, that was about 8 years ago. And to this day, she and I are really good friends.
Oh, what a wonderful story. Thanks a lot, Joe. We have a question from, somebody says you have, Paula says you have amazing hair.
She said more than that. She said more than that, but
She
that was
did
the last
say
thing.
more than that. Yeah, but that's the
What? I see one from Lee that is a good question too.
Yeah. Okay, Lee, over to you with your question.
Moving parts.
I mean, on your, when you have like an instruction book or a book with like a list of this and the steps on this and illustrations and stuff, if you wanted to present that to somebody, how would, to a possible book designer or a publisher or whatever, I mean, you wouldn't just have it all in like one page after another. Would you do your own layout first to kind of give an idea of what you think? I mean, what have you done on like the transforming fabrics? I mean, like you just give them everything or what?
No, well, later on you do, but what you have to do with any of these kind of publishers that I published with is you have to do a proposal. And in this proposal, you have to do everything. Why your book is better, what books are out there that you would sell better. You do a sample chapter so they can see your writing. You do a whole bunch of visuals of your artwork. So you would do a mock-up chapter of how you might arrange it. And I mean, I did it simply. I mean, you guys can do it on the computer, but I'm a gluer. So, I just did it in a notebook and glued it so that they could just thumb it and get an idea of what the book might feel like or look like. But once they accept you, then you just, okay, for most of them, I had a notebook that had all the writing in. And then in the writing, I would say, see visual number 5. And then I had numbered it. And then the other one was all the visuals. And then I give it to them, and that's what the designers do. They put it together. But I have some suggestions, and I'm very precise because, as you know, Lee, if you're doing a how-to book, this is a talent in itself to write a how-to. And a lot of my experience came from teaching. I knew exactly where people would go wrong. And even if they weren't thinking, you know, they would come up with these crazy things. So I built it right into the how-to. I spent a lot of time on the how-to because there are little captions under your picture. You have to really edit them down. But there's a certain way a procedure has to be presented. So I always had that in a sequence that they had to follow, 5A, 5B, whatever. But otherwise, as far as the arrangement in these chapters, you know, they're the ones who are going to put where your, what are called beauty shots are next to your how-tos. So they will do that for you, but you do have to do this extremely extensive proposal. It's like writing the bloody book.
Yeah, no, it just seemed like for something creative like that, you want that effect of turning the pages and seeing where things are going to be. So, you know, you don't want it to look like a scrapbook really, but you want it to have that feel of, you know, get somebody involved.
And I will say one thing too. I mean, you know, we are in technological times. Everybody thinks that the only way you do things are that way. But I will tell you, after working with these editors, they are just brain dead on the computer. Their eyes are so sore. They are so tired of being on the computer that if I present them something they can thumb, it's kind of like going to your doctor. You know, they're just tired of looking at the computer. They can relax with that, have a cup of coffee and thumb it. And it gives you a little bit of a advantage because suddenly you're fresh. When on the computer, proposal. Do you know how many they read per day, you know? So it's kind of like, I sort of like that old way if they'll let me do it.
Yeah, I do too.
It's very
Thank you for the
tactile.
tips.
Yeah, they're very tactile, and you know.
I know, we're all kind of that way, and you know what I've kept a reading list of every book I've read for the last. I'm now on year 41, so I have these lists going back to 1980, and you know I wanted to do do the books you read influence what you do in your life, or does your life influence what you choose to read, and how they're intermeshed and all like that. And I've got the actual lists I have scanned in, you know, that I've written with, you know, just ball pen on legal pads and stuff. And so I wanted to have kind of that scrapbooky feel of these quotes from these books that you think about every day and they affect your life. And then, you know, how you know, why, what's going on in your life, you choose a certain kind of books to read, like to escape, you know, or whatever. So, yeah, so that's kind of what I'm thinking of. And I don't think it wouldn't be interesting at all to just have page after page of the information and the quotes and stuff. It needs to kind of be laid out. So
it's a very fine balance, how you balance. I always say writing an art book is like writing 2 books, because you've got all these visuals you have to do, the how-tos and all that, and they have to be written a certain way. And then you've got, like, I always have to put in essays or very interesting beginnings. I mean, you know, I'm a writer. I have to sort of, like, one person said, boy, there's a lot to read in this how-to book, you know, because I always have to, you know, carry on a bit with philosophy or whatever.
I'm the same way. I want to tell the backstory. Oh, this is why I did this, you know.
And the story is important. I mean, like there's a chapter in there on heat transfer dyes. They're a gas permeable kind of dye. Well, I never knew until I studied these types of dyes. You do the design on paper, you put it down on your fabric and you heat it and it transfers. What happens inside is it's turning to a gas and then dropping down on your fabric. Little did I know that was what we all use for embroidery. I mean, I used that when I was 8 years old. I didn't know I was using heat transfer dyes.
Iron-on transfers, yeah.
I want that story. Yeah, stories are
Very
good.
good. Well, you're very inspirational, Carolyn, and I
Oh,
know
thank
that everybody here tonight is really getting a lot of what your experience is becoming special to us too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. It was well worth the long wait. I'm really
Very
never
good.
gonna
I'm
write a
glad.
book. I'm never going to write a book, but I know what to do now. If I write a book.
You never know. I didn't
Yeah.
write my first book until I was older. 97 was my first book.
Oh,
So
wow. Oh, there's another new message. Who's that? Oh,
You don't
well,
look
yeah.
97 at all.
I was gonna say, she doesn't look 97 to me.
1997.
I will forward, there's a lot of very complimentary comments in here about your presentation, and I will gather those up and email them to you. It's just one right after another, and
Yeah.
so well deserved. It was
Thank you. I
fabulous
would really
presentation.
appreciate that, because usually I don't get a chance to read them, or I don't know how to save them and I never see them. So.
Well,
Thank
can you put them in book form, Melody? with illustration.
My main concern is that, what I really need is what not to do with a self-published book cover, right? It's like, I don't want my book of comments to look like it was self-published. So there's so many artists here that can help me with a cover.
Less is more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is really so much. It's like you could do 10 workshops on it, because there is so much to putting together a book. I had no idea. I no longer look at a book the same way. I used to just, book to read or whatever. Now it's kind of like, oh my gosh, they did all this, and look at how they bound it, and look at that spacing of the poems, or look at, it. Once you do a book, it's like you never look at them the same.
Yeah,
Please
and even
come
the way they put the text is important.
It
I can't stand reading a book that has no paragraphs. There's no break between.
Yeah.
And
No,
all
it's
that
true.
kind of visual stuff is important.
Especially in poetry, your pauses are the same as the lines that you write. There's a lot of information in pauses.
Yeah,
So, yeah, it's very important.
fantastic. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank
Come
you
back.
for
Come back
inviting
and
me.
teach
It's
us
wonderful to be back
again.
at WiVLA. Enjoyed it. See so many good faces.
We'll book you again for in 2 years, maybe.
Okay.
Part
Sounds
two.
good.
Set
Yeah,
the date
book-
now.
Book her now, and the way things are going, it'll be 2 years before we
Yeah. Isn't that the
hopefully
truth?
we'll see her in person next
Yeah,
time.
that would
Oh,
be
that'd
great.
be nice. Yeah.
So
Good.
at this time, are there any member announcements, any information that you'd like to share, things are happening?
Me.
Yes, Paula, I think I saw your hand first.
I'm a photographer and can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And I have a photo in the Texas Photographic Society exhibit at Artworks Gallery in Austin, which opened on Saturday and will run through November 27th.
Yeah.
And I actually went up to Austin on Saturday to see it, and it's in a beautiful space. And so if you're in Austin, stop by.
I had an idea that you were up there, and it's one of my favorite photographs that you've taken.
Thank you, Melody.
Ms. Zider?
I recently did a bone installation. Anybody familiar with my bone installations? I did the labyrinth at Rothko Chapel a couple of years ago. This was for the 20th anniversary of the and the commemoration of the 9/11 victims who died. And I was invited to do this installation. The area is about 20 feet wide and about 6 feet deep. And every bone has the name of a victim
Oh,
of
wow.
9/11. So
Oh.
we did, I got the help of some students from Beller High School. They came to my studio and they wrote the 3,042 names on the
Oh
boat.
my gosh, wow.
So it will be
Wow.
there forever, as far as the director of the museum says. He wants to keep it forever.
Where is it? Where did you say it was?
Oh, it's the Museum of Biblical Arts in Dallas.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay.
Museum of
I've been there,
Biblical
but I heard of
Arts
it.
in
That
Dallas.
museum,
Yeah.
Hi.
Yes. Hey, Carol.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be here tonight, Carolyn, as per usual, fabulous. I haven't seen you guys in a long time, so tonight is very special for me. But I have a couture piece in a fundraiser for the Village Centers, which is for adults with disabilities, physical and mental. And that's going to be October the 23rd at the ballroom at the Bayou Place downtown. So that's going to be one of their featured things is this little coat. And by the way, the coat is a knockoff or a reflection of, here we go for reflection, when we did our show Compassion.
Yeah.
And so I had that little mannequin girl thing. And so now we have an adult size coat, which is quilted and hand painted and a Carolyn style thing.
Yeah.
Great.
Excellent.
Yes, June.
Oh, okay. I won an honorable mention in the Ghost of Springs Photo Club digital contest in the People's Choice Award in the creative category.
Fabulous. Hey, congratulations. Rona, yes, there you are. I knew you had something to share.
Well, I had to share a couple of things, but so I got an award at the fall membership show at the Watercolor Society, and the building is open to go see the exhibit. It's also online though. If you, they're open, I think 10 to 3 most days except Monday and Sunday maybe, and it was a piece because of COVID, because when we didn't have figure workshops, I played with semi-blind contour, and so I was really excited even to get into that show. And then the Pearland area, if you live in that direction, please tell people that on Saturdays from 12 to 8, the Pearland, I don't live down there, but I'm part of the group, the Pearland Artists League's gallery is now open by the pavilion in Town Center. And so I have some work there, and there's a lot of nice work there. And they were able to get the space donated. First time for them to have a permanent space or a space in Pearland. They're really working on Pearland, getting more arts of all kind, the arts presence. So yeah, tell people to go by, because I was there sitting it, and it was pretty empty for us.
So this is the one that you put on our Facebook group page, right?
Yeah, I did. So yeah, it's the first time I went down there was a little hard to find because I didn't know the place, but it's a nice space with little rooms and lots of artwork to see.
And you have all the address information and everything.
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, because that's a good way. I mean, please take advantage of the Facebook group for sharing this kind of information. I know not everybody, and if you're not a member of the group, get in touch with one of us. Go on our website, find out, go to the board page, find one of the board members and email us and say, get me in the group.
yeah, I want to encourage people, if you do go by Wash, go to the Benil and see the Nikki de
Saint-Phal.
Fall exhibit of her work from the 60s. It's an amazing exhibit.
Okay.
Right.
Anyone else? Carolyn, did you raise your hand? I saw it. I'm seeing hands. Okay. I can't see everybody. Margot.
Well, Ellen was before me, so I'll go after Ellen.
Okay. I can't see Ellen. Okay. I'm gonna.
Right here. I'm right here. And
Okay.
I was going to say thanks to Margot Stutz-Toombs coordinating the Archway Gallery reading that is coming up this Thursday. I'm participating in that with a nice Halloween story.
Great.
Oh, great.
Yeah, if you would like the Zoom link, yeah, send me a message. I guess on Facebook.
Okay.
I can share it with WiVLA.
Yeah, because I think I've seen it. I saw it on Facebook because I was thinking Halloween is really out of Ellen's comfort zone, so I was sort of surprised to see that. Sorry, that's a running joke. Yes, Margot.
Okay, I have a poem that's going to be in the newsletter of the Gulf Coast chapter of Texas Master Naturalists. And the name of the poem is "Oh Possum, Oh Please." And Jerry Pfister and I are in a storytelling class, and we will be in the showcase November the 17th.
Oh,
so
cool.
I'll share it on our Facebook page. We don't have the venue yet.
Okay, fabulous. I thought I'd seen Jerry, but maybe I didn't. Okay. Any other announcements? Okay, I just have one little one for me. My exhibition will be up through Saturday. Coming down Sunday, I'll be there from noon to 5.
Yeah.
Well, it's been 3 weeks. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yes, Lee, I see. Are you waving or like?
I'm like, come on, people, we need board members. So I don't think that Melody made an announcement about that.
Not tonight, no.
That WiVLA is looking for new board members for the next year. Some people will be returning, but we have a good turnout tonight. So y'all please consider joining the board. And there's no pressure. It's so easy. You don't have to drive across town for a board meeting anymore. And I don't know, go take it away, Melody, give your sales pitch.
Well, I mean, as Sally alluded to at our last member meeting, you can drink wine during the board meeting. So she mentioned how she was able to get wine out of her keyboard after spilling it during the board meeting. So yeah, it's, I mean, we have a lot of fun. We share a lot of good ideas. Everybody helps everybody. It's, I've been on the board for a few years now. I got one more, and I tell you, I've met some fabulously interesting women. I've learned so much. I'm a visual artist, but I tell you, I love hanging around with all these writers. I think y'all are amazing. So it's, if you think you're not qualified, think again.
Yeah.
And please don't block me, block my number on your phones, because I'm not above just calling you out of the blue, because I think y'all are worthy of being on the board.
Well, I can testify as being a complete novice to this, and everybody has been so kind during my tenure. So you get a lot of help from everybody.
Yeah, it's true.
I think everybody in the last, I've been involved in the board 5 years. This is it. Y'all get me like 2 more times, and then I'm out of here. But I'm not leaving. But it's the fact that we really work well together, and we don't just throw anybody in there and expect them to do something they haven't done before. We always work together. We never give somebody a big project and then just, leave them alone. We always work together and help each other out. And we fill in wherever someone needs help, because we all have busy lives and we all have aging parents or kids with issues and things. And so we realize it's volunteer, and yeah, it's meant so much to me. So I'm gonna cry.
So technically, Lee is in charge of the nominating committee. So if you're afraid to contact me, you can contact Lee.
Or I'll call you. Okay.
Or yeah. So anyway, yeah. Think about serving on the board. It's just an awful lot of fun. And are there any more announcements before we close the meeting for this evening? Okay, well, Carolyn, it's been a delight.
Thank you.
I have learned a lot myself, and we want you to come back sometime.
It's good to see Carolyn again.
And Carolyn, I know you've been a member in the past, and as a presenter at this meeting, now you have an honorary membership for 1 year from this date.
Really?
So, and it's like a real, see, now here's something to get all excited about if you're a visual artist. She's like a member, she just isn't paying for her dues, which means she can participate in the collaboration.
Ooh.
So, yeah. How exciting is that?
Sounds fun.
Okay, well,
Look forward
Okay.
to it.
All right. Y'all have a great evening. We'll see you next month, and y'all take care. Thanks again, Carolyn. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.